This episode of Patriots from the Barrio is sponsored by the Paredes Family Trust. We thank you for your support. Welcome to episode 1 of Patriots from the Barrio Podcast. Today's subject is Silvestre Herrera, Medal of Honor recipient. Silvestre Herrera is one of over 60 Latinos who have been awarded the Medal of Honor. Now, I briefly wrote about Silvestre's story in my book, Patriots from the Barrio, which was the true story of Company E in the 141st Infantry. Silvestre, during World War II, was serving with Company E in the 142nd Infantry of the 36th Infantry Division. I think that when we talk about Medal of Honor recipients, the first thing we need to take a look at is their Medal of Honor citation. So let's go through that and read his Medal of Honor citation. U.S. Army, date of action March 15th, 1945. Near Merzwiller, France. And it reads, he advanced with a platoon along a wooded road until stopped by heavy machine gun fire. As the rest of the unit took cover, he made a one-man frontal assault on a strong point and captured 8 enemy soldiers. When the platoon resumed its advance and was subjected to fire from a second emplacement beyond an extensive minefield, Private Herrera again moved forward. Disregarding the danger of exploding mines to attack the position, he stepped on a mine and had both feet severed. But despite intense pain and unchecked loss of blood, he pinned down the enemy with accurate rifle fire, while a friendly squad captured the enemy gun by skirting the minefield and rushing in from the flank. The magnificent courage, extraordinary heroism, and willing self-sacrifice displayed by Private Herrera resulted in the capture of 2 enemy strong points and taking of 8 prisoners. This is an incredible and absolute feat of courage. Well-deserved our country's highest honor in the Medal of Honor. Silvestre's story is very unique in a way, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to capture his story as part of episode 1 of our podcast series here. When Silvestre was 27 years old, he was married to his wife Ramona and had already had 3 children, with another one on the way, when he received a draft notice in the mail. Now, he's living in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and he gets this draft notice. And he says, well, I'm going to have to go ahead and enlist and do my part in the war, since I've been drafted to go into the Army. So he figures, well, I better go tell my dad and let him know I'm going to need his help to look over the family and things like that. So he goes over to his dad, Librado's house. And he explains to his dad that I was drafted and I'm going to be enlisted in the U.S. Army. His dad sits him down and tells him, Silvestre, he tells him, sit down, I have something to tell you. And he proceeds to tell Silvestre, you have no obligation whatsoever to go into the military because you are not a U.S. citizen. Now, this is news to Silvestre. This is the first time he's hearing this story. His father continues to tell him, he tells him, Silvestre, you were actually born in Mexico, and I'm not your real father. This is shocking news to Silvestre. As Librado continues to tell him, I'm actually your biological uncle. Your parents died when you were only 2 years old, and I've been raising you as one of my own children. Again, very shocking news for Silvestre to hear all this for the first time. He's 27 years old, and the man in front of him is telling him that he's not his real father and that he's actually his uncle. Silvestre tells Librado, look, I married an American wife. I have an American wife. My children are Americans. I would not want someone to die in my place. So I'm going to go ahead and enlist anyways and fight for the country that basically has adopted me. Now, Silvestre's story really starts out in Camargo, Chihuahua, Mexico, where he was born. As a matter of fact, his draft notice, on the back of his draft notice, it states, not exactly sure of the birth date. So he doesn't even know his real birth date. So for all intents and purposes, his birth date, he's been celebrating his birthday as July 17th, 1917. And through research, I located his baptismal record from the parish church in Camargo, Chihuahua, Mexico. And he's actually born on December 31st, 1916. And his real name is actually Jose Silvestre Santana Almanza. His last name is Almanza. His real biological mother was Felicitas Herrera. So this is Librado's, the man that he thought was his father is actually his uncle. Librado is his biological mother's brother. So, and what happened was both his parents died from the Spanish flu, influenza. So his parents die, he's orphaned, his biological uncle brings him over in 1919 to El Paso, Texas. And we know this because I found his uncle Librado's immigration paperwork when the family first arrived in El Paso, Texas. So he was just brought up as one of the Herrera children in El Paso, Texas. He later, when he was in his teens, the family moved to the Arizona area, and that's where he met his wife, Ramona. So Silvestre Herrera is drafted into the United States Army. He goes through basic training, and he arrives in Italy with the United States Army, and he's at a replacement depot where he starts to fill out paperwork to become a U.S. citizen. This is the document that I found where he was first doing his paperwork to become a U.S. citizen is dated September 9th, 1944. Ironic the date of September 9th, because a year earlier, on September 9th, 1943, the 36th Division landed at Salerno, Italy on that day. And here he is a year later, and he's filling out paperwork to become a U.S. citizen in Italy while he's at this replacement depot in Italy. So let's set the stage for Company E in the 142nd Infantry Regiment of the 36th Division. And we really need to go back and look at the history of the 36th Infantry Division. They were made up of National Guard units from the states of Oklahoma and Texas. Their patch identification is an upside-down arrowhead, which stood for the state of Oklahoma, and a big T in the middle of it for the state of Texas. So they served heroically in World War I. In November of 1940, the unit was federalized, and the 36th Division was training at Brownwood, Texas, at Camp Bowie in Brownwood, Texas. So, December 7th, 1941 comes around, the attack on Pearl Harbor. Now America's thrusted in the middle of World War II. 4 days later, Germany declared war on the United States, and then later that day we went ahead and declared war right back at them. So really setting the stage for the 36th Infantry Division to get to Europe. They had already been part of the Louisiana maneuvers, I should say. And after Pearl Harbor, they moved to Camp Blanding, Florida, where they were training. They took part in the Carolina maneuvers, and then the 36th Infantry Division was part of what they called Ranger training at Camp Edwards in Massachusetts, where actual British commandos were brought in to facilitate the instruction of this new thing that the U.S. Army was calling Ranger training. Then the 36th Division deployed to North Africa in April of 1943. They continued training in North Africa, and they spearheaded the Allied landing at Salerno, Italy on September 9th, 1943. So here the T-Patchers, as they were known, became one of the first units to oppose Hitler's Nazi forces on the European mainland continent at Salerno, Italy. So they're fighting through Italy. Now Silvestre, at this time, is still back in Arizona. He hasn't been with the unit yet. A whole year goes by, and we realize that Silvestre is filling out his documentation paperwork to becoming a U.S. citizen while he's there in September of 1944. The 36th Division continued fighting in Italy in 1943 through 44 until they marched into Rome. They were pulled off the lines afterwards, and they were part of Operation Dragoon in the landing in southern France. So this was August of 1944. So that's how the 36th Division ends up in France fighting. And then Silvestre Herrera is assigned to Company E in the 142nd Infantry Regiment of the 36th Division. So that sets the scene of how Silvestre gets to the point where we've already read his Medal of Honor citation. Now, the after-action reports of the 142nd, which I find online by our friends at the Texas Military Forces Museum in Austin, And you can also find all your after action reports of the 36th Division online at the Texas Military Forces Museum's website. Very handy. So thank you again to our friends at the Texas Military Forces Museum in Austin, Texas. So the after action reports indicate that on March 14th and March 15th, the objective of the 142nd Infantry Regiment was to go ahead and take the town of Merzwiller, France. So we've already read Silvestre's heroic action on the 15th of March, 1945, where his actions accumulated to him being awarded the Medal of Honor. So obviously, Silvestre is hospitalized. He's lost both of his feet from that action. And they tell him that he needs to go to Washington, D.C. Because the President of the United States, Harry Truman, is going to be awarding him the Medal of Honor. Silvestre's in a wheelchair at the time. He wheels across the White House lawn and into the White House, where there's a huge ceremony, and President Truman awards Silvestre Herrera the Medal of Honor. This is a U.S. Army soldier who was actually born in Mexico, and he's being awarded the Medal of Honor. At the time of the ceremony, President Harry Truman went ahead and presented the award, the Medal of Honor, and he tells Silvestre, "I would rather have one of these than to be the President of the United States." And that always stuck with Silvestre, hearing that from the President of the United States, that he would rather be awarded the Medal of Honor than to actually be the President of the United States. So it's something that had always stayed with Silvestre. So Silvestre returns home after being awarded the Medal of Honor at the White House. And the people of Arizona know that this hero, really returning back to Arizona, is of modest means, and they feel that the Medal of Honor recipient, actually the first Medal of Honor recipient during World War II from the state of Arizona, was Silvestre Herrera. And they felt that this person at least should own his own home. And the people of Arizona donated a home for this Medal of Honor recipient. So kudos to them for recognizing Silvestre and assisting the family in that manner. So he returns home again. He's the first Arizonian resident to be awarded the Medal of Honor during World War II. And in 1956, they built a new school in Phoenix, Arizona, and named it Silvestre S. Herrera Elementary School, which is still there today. In 2002, the United States Army was breaking ground on a new training reserve center in Mesa, Arizona, and they named that also in Silvestre's honor. And Silvestre was actually there for the dedication. After the United States awarded Silvestre with the Medal of Honor, the country of Mexico also awarded Silvestre the Premier Mérito Militar award. And Silvestre proudly wore both awards from both countries that he represented. He was still a Mexican national who had been born in Mexico, And Mexico, recognizing that, wanted to make sure that they also honored Silvestre. So Silvestre was very proud of both awards. Obviously, having fought for the United States in the U.S. Army, he was very proud. Silvestre Herrera passed away on November 26, 2007 in Glendale, Arizona. And he was laid to rest at Rest Haven Park Cemetery in Glendale, Arizona. And really, to summarize his entire story, and one of the reasons why I wanted to share this story with our audience, knowing the political climate that we live in today, regarding Mexican nationals, U.S. Citizens, and things like that, I wanted to make sure that I share this story of Silvestre Herrera, who proudly represented a true American patriot from the barrio. His uncle had brought him from Mexico into live with them in El Paso, Texas. And speaking of El Paso, Texas, shout out to our friends out there who I've written about several times. The people of El Paso, Texas, the Segundo Barrio out there. So shout out to Chuco Town out there in El Paso. Again, getting back to Silvestre's story, and the family then moving to the Arizona area, working. Now, during all this time, Silvestre was working as a farmhand, like many Mexicans at the time, Mexican Americans. So here he was also working as a farmhand during this time. He's raising his family, and then he gets this remarkable draft notice, and he then learns that the man that was raising him as his father was not even his biological father, and that his parents had died in Mexico. He was born in Mexico, yet this man wanted to make sure he served the country that basically adopted him when they brought him over from Mexico. So here he is serving in the U.S. Army, an extraordinary heroism, acts of valor on the battlefield during World War II. So this is why I wanted to bring Silvestre's story to our audience and to share that with all of you. We hope you enjoyed hearing Silvestre's story, and I thought it was appropriate that we kick it off with his story and the story of a Medal of Honor recipient. Many of you know, and many of you are unaware, that I was part of the advisory panel on the new Medal of Honor Museum that's being built, or that was built in Arlington, Texas. It just opened this March. And I'm so happy to be a part of that panel, to get that thing going, the museum going in Arlington, Texas. So if you get a chance, and you get a chance to get out there to visit that museum, make sure you stop by the exhibit that's there of Silvestre Herrera at the new National Medal of Honor Museum in Arlington, Texas. I want to thank you all for joining us on this podcast and the story of Silvestre Herrera. And we look forward to having you on our next episode of Patriots from the Barrio. Next on Patriots from the Barrio, Lieutenant Oscar Perdomo, the last American ace in a day of World War II.